For those unaware, the coroner's report into Michael's death was just released recently, and there was criticism about this particular rider, Michael, and how he should make himself be seen on the road. Well, today we're going to talk about how we can do that and we can make ourselves more visible. Well, when people think about making themselves more visible on the road or at night, the first thing that they basically jump to is lights. What sort of light should I put on my bike? Now, there's two types of lights that there is out there. There's ones that are basically your real cheapo ones. You might be able to put a battery in it, and they're really quite low lumens, usually around about 5 or 10 lumens, sometimes even less. Sometimes they're also given away at some of these ride to work days and so forth, those sorts of lights. I don't actually have any of those here because I actually feel that they're pretty ineffective. They don't do much, and even when you do use them at night time, they are very difficult to see. And especially in Australia, where we have very harsh and bright sunlight, basically you turn those things on in the daytime, you can't even see they're on. So they have very limited use, but they are cheap. Okay, so what I do recommend, if you want to put lights on your bike and you want to ride at night, that you basically make an investment. Unfortunately, most of the lights these days have gone to rechargeable, the ones that are any good anyway, and the price of them has really taken off. You used to be able to get some lights in the old days that were actually very good quality, that you could just put your AAA batteries in, and these were still relatively cheap, but they seem to be disappearing from the market from what I can see in the bike shops. So what do we got? Here what we've got is we have a cat's eye type light, and this one here is very good. It's 100 lumens and it has very many different types of flashing type styles on it. That's like a pulsing one, and we can change it maybe. Here we go, we can have some pulsing there, and we have bright, steady, and slow flash, fast flash, so forth, and many of the lights do these different type of styles of flashing. And here's another one by Lenzine. This one is really quite a good light, and even it actually does have a pulsating mode of 300 lumens, and it actually goes quite right. But even when you have it on its lower settings, like the 5 lumens, it appears to be brighter than the cat's eye. So I don't know how that works, but because lumens are supposed to be the way they rate them, but this one's actually quite a good light. It's a little bit heavy, so if you're putting on your helmet or something like that, it may be a bit of a obstacle, but good light. But again, it's quite expensive. And then we have these type of strip lights that have been around for quite a while. Moonmaker, one that looks very much like this, but this one here actually is not a moon, it's a copy, it's a Chinese copy, and I think this one was around about $15 American or something like that. Quite good value, but even still, it's not that bright, and the trouble with this particular light I've found is the run time is not that great, and that's something that is a little bit, that I personally am a little bit critical of the rechargeables. The old AA's and AAA lights used to last, like this last ages. You could put rechargeable battery and last a week, while these new rechargeable ones, after maybe 2 or 3 hours, they're flat. You've got to charge them pretty much every day to make sure that your light doesn't go flat. And then we have lights we can put on the front of our bike. Now here's one here. I don't know if you can see this. I'll try and get it into focus for you right there. And this is actually a discontinued model, but I've got the newer model that they've got out. But this is another one off a Chinese website. Very well made, and I have to really rate it. These things have been absolutely fantastic. I ride them in all sorts of weather. Been very good value. But of course, again, people may not want to put them on their bikes, but if they're race bike, you have to fit the light on, and they also have to have quite a large battery pack that fits somewhere on your up stem or underneath your top tube or whatever. So these things here, I run them all the time. They're so bright that you basically can run them in the daylight. They're as bright as a headlight. You put them on flashing and they're really good. And I find that where these ones really help is like when you're approaching places like roundabouts and things like that, or a giveaway sign, and people have stopped and you can see they're tempted to take off because you're a bicycle. I don't know what it is. For some reason, drivers seem to think that they can duck in front of bicycles, and you have to hit the brakes. They do that a lot. But when you have these really bright lights and they're flashing, you can see them hesitating. So I do believe that these lights do have an impact, and that's why I run them. But the trouble is with a lot of front lights is that they don't have a very good run time if they're bright, or they're not bright, or they're very expensive. Now these ones here, this pack here, it works probably between, if you buy the charger and everything like that, and this is the better battery, not the cheap battery that they sell with the light in the combo. Buy this battery separate. These lights are very durable, and you're probably spending between $50 and $100 US to get them. So they're not that expensive, but it's still a cost. So you go, okay Wayne, well, that's all good and well, and those lights might work very well, but you just basically like threw, you know, $300, $400, $500 in front of us, and that's a lot of money. And especially if my bike only cost me $500 or $1,000 or whatever, and I just ride around to the shops and to work and so forth. I mean, man, that's a big investment in something just to be seen. And I agree. So what can you do? What can you do instead of putting these expensive lights on, and cheap lights are basically no good? Well, what you can do is you can use reflectors. Reflectors, there you go. Yeah, but reflectors, they're not that great. I mean, most people take them off their bikes. They're pretty useless, aren't they? Well, I actually disagree with that, and I think that people, yeah, they do look a bit daggy, especially the ones on the wheels that come as part of the Australian standard rules, and most people take them off. I don't see many of those on bikes. Okay, so you go, yep, they look ugly, they unbalance your wheel. Most bike shops, you can walk into them and they've got a box out the back full of reflectors, and they usually, quite often they'll just give them to you because no one wants them. Well, what can you do to make these things look a little bit more attractive but still have that benefit of having reflectors on your bike? Okay, so I've got a couple of things here that I use. Now we've got personal items we can put on. This one's here is a Scotch-Brite. You know, I'm just going to hold that up in front of you, get that in focus. There we go, Scotch-Brite. And these just clip around the legs. And I actually quite like these because most of the clip-on pedals don't actually meet the road rules. And here in WA, where I live, you're supposed to have a reflector on your pedal. That's actually in the road traffic code. So all these people riding around with clip pedals, we're technically breaking the law. Not that I think a police officer is going to pull you up and fine you, but the idea of that reflector is that it's like a moving motion which has a reflector on it, and of course because it's moving and it reflects and it flashes because your pedal's turning and it picks up the light, it's actually very easy to see. And these things here can do exactly the same thing, and they weigh nothing, you know, and you can put them on your legs. Now these type of reflectors we've just looked at, I would call them more type of a domestic type reflector. They probably don't meet any Australian standards or international standards, whatever. Same with a lot of the bicycle clothing you get. They say they're reflective, and they have this kind of Scotch-Brite stuff, or they have a ribbing around your bag. And the trouble with those is they're really not that effective. I find, yeah, they do glow in the dark, and if you're looking at the person you can see it, but they don't catch your eye. They're not really that great. So what I would suggest is you go to like a proper reflector, like an automotive reflector or a safety type reflector. And I've got some of those here. First of all, I've got like this one here. I'll just hold it up. This is an automotive reflector. I think they're designed for trailers and so forth. And these ones here, I think this pack cost me $6, so $6 for two. And these things are really great. I got one on my bike right here. And what you can do with these is you can basically get some of these, what I call sticky backs, because I'm in the electrical industry. But basically what they are is a cable tie holder, and these got sticky backs on them, and you've got your reflectors here, and you can stick one of these on the back of the reflectors, and then you can loop it onto your bag or bike or whatever. And they're very, very cheap. I mean, both of these things are very low cost, and because it's a proper automotive reflector, these things, when the light hits them or a headlight hits them, they look brighter than even a bicycle light. And even if the sun hits them in the daytime, I've even noticed that sometimes you think cars' headlights are on, but it's just the reflectors from the sunlight. So these things work in the daytime and they work in the night time, and the amount of light that they reflect is considerably higher than these type of domestic type reflecting devices that we seem to see on clothing and these type of footwear type items like this that go around your wrist. And we also have reflector tape. Now reflector tape, I would suggest don't buy from Bunnings or whatever, go to a proper safety shop. It is a little bit pricey. I have some here, and this stuff is really good. It's basically the same, works the same as these automotive reflectors, and it meets obviously Australian standards or some sort of standard, and these things work really well. When the light hits them, especially at night time, it's really, really bright. And I recommend this stuff really good. And what's great about it is this stuff here, you can stick it on anything. Like you can stick it on, like if you've got deep dish wheels, as you can see here, or you can stick it on your helmet, like this one here. I've added this onto my helmet. And when you're riding at night time and you're going across a crossroad, you're riding a bike basically like this across a crossroad to the traffic, your lights are facing frontwards and backwards, and maybe they might have a little light shining at the side, a luminous, but it's very small. If you've got reflectors on the side of your bike, it just lights you up like a Christmas tree, and you can be seen really easy by the vehicles that are coming at you at a T. Here we have a backpack where I've actually fitted a reflector to the back of it. This one is a orange one, so officially, technically, it shouldn't be facing backwards, it should only be facing sideways. But if they see you, they see you. That's the way I look at it. And it's got a sticky back on the back. I don't know if you can see that. Sticky back on the back, and then it's just got a cable tie that holds it on, and it's very secure. So okay, we've looked at all these lights, we've looked at all these reflectors, and we can actually have a combination of them. I do believe that you can add these things to your bicycle, and as we've seen with my bicycle, I do believe that they look fairly attractive on the bike, and they don't take away from the design and the aesthetics of the bicycle, but they are offering me some protection as far as being visual to a driver when I'm riding along.